Something is happening inside the Cleveland Browns facility that nobody wants to say out loud. You can feel it in the way people are moving. You can see it in the way certain conversations have gone quiet. Rookie minicamp just started, and already the energy has shifted in a direction that nobody predicted, and the people inside that building know exactly what it means. This isn't about highlights. This isn't about one throw or one impressive rep that gets clipped and posted online. This is about something deeper, something that builds slowly and then all at once. Because when you strip away the noise, the narratives, and the carefully managed press conference answers, what's actually happening in that locker room is becoming impossible to ignore. Envy doesn't announce itself. It doesn't walk through the door with a name tag. It seeps in quietly through sidelong glances and silent comparisons, through the moment a guy realizes the conversation has shifted and his name is no longer the one being said with excitement. That's what's beginning to happen in Cleveland. And before this camp is over, it's going to be impossible to pretend otherwise. So let's talk about what the tape is actually showing, what the media isn't telling you, and what's really going on behind those closed camp doors. The first day of rookie minicamp doesn't usually mean much in the grand scheme of an NFL offseason. Guys are still learning the playbook, coaches are still evaluating bodies. Nothing is supposed to be settled this early. But sometimes, and this doesn't happen often, you see something on day one that just cuts through all of that. Something that makes everyone in that facility stop and take notice, even if nobody wants to admit it. That's exactly what happened when Shedeur Sanders stepped onto that field. From the very first series, something looked different. The ball came out cleaner, the timing was faster, the decisions felt sharper and more deliberate than anything you'd expect from a quarterback still getting his feet under him in a new system. Easy throws were made to look effortless. Difficult timing windows were hit with a confidence that doesn't usually show up this early in an install period. And the moment that really got people's attention wasn't one single throw. It was the rhythm, the repeated, consistent, drive after drive rhythm that said this guy already understands where he is and what he's doing out here. Denzel Boston locked in immediately. Concepcion was right there with him. Routes felt crisp. Catch points were clean. The communication between quarterback and receiver didn't look like something being built from scratch. It looked like something that had already been working for weeks. And that's the part that cuts deepest, because everyone else on that field was still searching, still finding the timing, still getting comfortable in a new environment. While the rest of the room was adjusting, Shedeur was already operating. And in a competition this crowded, that distinction matters enormously. The word spreading inside the building after that first session wasn't loud or dramatic. It didn't need to be. When something is that obvious, you don't need to shout it. You just need to watch the tape. And the tape already had its answer. Here's the thing about athletic quarterbacks coming into the NFL. Everyone wants them to be the answer. The combination of speed, mobility, and physical tools is intoxicating. It looks like potential. It looks like upside. It looks like the kind of player who could change everything if it all comes together. And Talon has all of that on the surface. Nobody is going to sit here and pretend otherwise. The man can move. He can avoid pressure with a quickness that genuinely turns heads. He has the kind of physical profile that gets scouts excited and gets fans dreaming about what could be. But the NFL doesn't run on what could be. It runs on what is. And right now, what is, when you watch the actual footage from minicamp with honest eyes, is a quarterback who is still a serious work in progress. The throws are inconsistent, the timing is off, reads that should come quickly are taking too long to develop, and under any kind of pressure, the mechanics start to break down in ways that aren't easy to fix. Passes are sailing, windows are being missed by enough to be a real problem, not just a minor adjustment. This is the kind of quarterback profile that has burned NFL teams for decades. The physical tools are so impressive that people start projecting outcomes before the fundamentals are actually there. They see the speed and assume the accuracy will follow. They see the elusiveness and assume the pocket presence will develop. But those things don't automatically arrive just because the physical gifts are real. Control has to be built. Accuracy under pressure has to be drilled and earned and refined over time. And right now, that refinement is nowhere close to being finished.
Green is still a project. That's not a dismissal, that's an honest evaluation. He has real traits that could develop into something meaningful down the road, but in a room where the competition is live and the depth chart decisions are being made right now, potential without production is a liability, and the tape from that first session made that gap very, very clear. While the spotlight has been bouncing between Shedeur and Green, the other quarterbacks in this competition have been quietly making their own arguments, and unfortunately for them, those arguments aren't particularly strong right now. Gabriel is a name that gets brought up, but when you actually watch him work through a full practice session, what you see is a quarterback with a ceiling that already feels marked. Nothing jumps out, nothing separates. The throws are constrained, the processing feels limited, and there's no moment where you find yourself leaning forward thinking this could really be something. It feels contained in a way that's difficult to overcome. And then there's Deshaun Watson. This is where things get complicated, because the conversation around Watson is loaded with history and emotion and expectations that have nothing to do with what's actually happening on the field right now. What the field is showing is a quarterback who is no longer operating with the sharpness that defined his best years. The beat is inconsistent. The timing fluctuates in ways that aren't easy to write off as just rust. In a system where every single snap is being evaluated and compared in real time, inconsistency isn't something you can hide. It shows up in the film, it shows up in the rhythm, and it becomes a problem the moment you stack his reps against someone who is currently operating with clarity and command. Watson is no longer the reliable floor in this room. That's uncomfortable to say for a lot of people who have invested enormous emotional energy into believing in his comeback. But what's happening on that field right now does not support the idea that he's going to walk back in and reclaim control of this competition just because of his resume. Resumes don't win depth chart battles in minicamp. Reps do. When you line all four of these quarterbacks up and watch the footage honestly, not through the lens of who you were hoping would win, but through the lens of what's actually happening, the answer keeps pointing in one direction, and that direction is making some people in that facility very, very uncomfortable. This is where the media conversation gets genuinely frustrating, because what happened after day one of minicamp is exactly what always happens when the narrative doesn't match what people want to be true. Talon Green made one throw. A tight window shot that looked sharp, hit its target, and immediately became the clip that every outlet with a social media account ran as if it was a referendum on the entire quarterback competition. The headlines practically wrote themselves. The excitement built instantly, and for a few hours, the story inside that building was completely rewritten based on a single play from a single session. That's how this works now. One highlight gets extracted from hours of footage, packaged into something digestible, and pushed out to an audience that doesn't have the time or access to watch the full session and draw their own conclusions. The problem is that one play doesn't tell the story of a quarterback battle. Consistency tells the story. Command across an entire session tells the story. What happens on the throws that don't go well tells the story. And when you watch the complete footage, all of it, not just the clip that got shared 40,000 times, a very different picture emerges. Green missed throws he shouldn't have missed. He overthrew receivers on routes that should have been simple completions. He sailed a pass to a tight end who was open. The timing on several plays was late enough to be a legitimate concern. None of those moments made the highlight reel. None of them became the clip that spread across every Browns fan page and NFL media account. But they happened, and they happened often enough that pretending the session was a coming-out party for Talon Green is simply not honest. The frustration isn't with Green. He's a rookie doing what rookies do, which is trying to figure it out in real time. The frustration is with the way a single moment gets turned into a narrative that obscures what's actually happening on a broader level. Because when you let one play define a competition that has been clearly trending in one direction from the moment the first whistle blew, you're not doing journalism, you're doing wishful thinking. Nobody is going to come out and say it publicly. That's not how these things work. Locker rooms have their own code of silence around certain conversations, and what's happening with the receiver dynamic on this team is exactly the kind of thing that gets processed internally before it ever makes it to a microphone. But the energy doesn't lie, and right now, the energy around Jeudy's position in this offense is shifting in ways that are difficult to miss if you know what you're looking at.
Jeudy came into this offseason with a certain expectation attached to his name. He's the veteran presence, the established receiver, the guy who was supposed to be a foundational piece of whatever this offense was going to build. And that expectation carries weight, right up until the moment a younger player starts building something real with the quarterback who is clearly ascending. Because that's when the math starts to change. When Denzel Boston and Shedeur Sanders are connecting with the kind of early chemistry that takes most receiver-quarterback pairs months to develop, and that connection is happening in the first session of rookie minicamp, the conversation around who the most trusted target in this offense is going to be shifts almost immediately. Not loudly, not in any way that creates a direct confrontation, but the shift happens, and the people in that building can feel it, even if nobody is saying the words out loud. This is precisely how camps alter perceptions, not through big announcements or depth chart changes posted on a website, through the quiet, daily accumulation of evidence that one group is building something and another group is defending something. And defending a position is always harder than building toward one. While most of the conversation has been focused on the quarterback competition, the receiver who has been quietly making the most compelling case for himself is Denzel Boston. And if you've been paying attention to the footage from that first minicamp session, you already know why. This is not a guy who is still figuring out what kind of player he is. He arrived at that facility with a physical presence and a route-running clarity that immediately signals something different. The frame is large and difficult to cover. The routes are clean in ways that don't usually show up this early in a player's professional development. The catch points are natural, easy, and consistent, the kind of hands that a quarterback learns to trust, not because he has to, but because the receiver keeps earning that trust on every single rep. There's a physicality to the way Boston works through his routes that makes him a problem for defensive backs even before the snap is fully processed. But the most important thing about what Boston showed in that first session isn't any one individual play, it's what his presence does to the people around him. When Shedeur Sanders has a receiver of that caliber operating with that kind of consistency on the outside, the entire offense opens up in ways that can't be manufactured. Spacing becomes easier to exploit, timing windows become wider. The confidence that a quarterback plays with when he knows his outside receiver can win one-on-one situations every single time changes the way an offense functions at a fundamental level. That's what is beginning to develop here, and it's developing fast, faster than most people anticipated, faster probably than anyone inside that facility was fully prepared for. The connection between Shedeur and Boston isn't just chemistry, it's the kind of foundation that real offenses get built on. And in a room full of players still trying to find their footing, that stability stands out in a way that's nearly impossible to overstate. Here is where the conversation gets genuinely uncomfortable for a lot of people who have been deeply invested in certain narratives about this quarterback competition, because the gap, the real, tape-supported, footage-confirmed gap between what Shedeur is doing and everyone else in that room is doing, is not narrowing, it's widening. And it's widening at a rate that's becoming difficult to justify away with talking points about early installs and limited reps in the natural chaos of a first minicamp session. Shedeur is not flashing. That's the key distinction that keeps getting missed in these conversations. Flashing means you look great for a series or two and then fall back into inconsistency. What Shedeur is doing is commanding. Drive after drive, rep after rep, the control is consistent, the timing is consistent, the decision-making is consistent. And when you compare that consistency to what everyone else in that room is producing right now, the contrast is sharp enough to be uncomfortable. Green is still dealing with fundamental accuracy issues that don't resolve themselves overnight. Gabriel is working against a ceiling that doesn't appear to be moving. Watson is fighting for rhythm that isn't reliably showing up in a system where reliability is the entire point. And Shedeur is doing none of those things. He's doing the opposite. He's making it look easier than it should look at this stage of an NFL quarterback's development, and he's doing it with a consistency that suggests it isn't an accident. The people watching this competition from the inside know what they're seeing. The tape makes it clear. And the longer this camp goes on with this kind of daily evidence accumulating, the harder it becomes to construct a serious argument that this competition is actually close. Because what's happening on the field every single day is telling a story that has a very clear direction. And the only question now is how long it takes for everyone on the outside to catch up to what the people on the inside already know. Step back from the individual plays and the daily minicamp updates for a second and think about what this situation actually means for this franchise going forward. The Cleveland Browns spent years trapped in a cycle of quarterback uncertainty, making decisions based on hope and projection and the desperate desire to find an answer that never quite materialized. Every new name that arrived was supposed to be the solution. Every new offseason was supposed to be the one where the position finally got stable, and somehow the stability never came. What's happening right now in these early sessions might be the first genuine sign that the cycle is actually breaking. Not because of a single great practice, not because of a few impressive throws from a player who looked clean in a controlled environment, but because of the specific combination of factors that are coming together simultaneously in a way that doesn't happen by accident. A quarterback with genuine command, a receiver building genuine trust, a connection that's forming fast and already looks repeatable. These are not small things. These are the ingredients that legitimate offenses are built from. The noise will continue, that's guaranteed. Every time Talon makes an athletic throw or a clip goes viral, the narrative will shift for a news cycle and people will start questioning whether the competition is tighter than it looks. Every time Watson has a sharp series, someone will suggest that the veteran is finding his footing and the race is back on. That's how this media environment functions, and fighting against it is pointless. But the tape keeps accumulating. Every session adds more evidence. Every rep tells more of the story. And the story that's being written right now, in real time, with actual footage from actual practice sessions, has a very clear protagonist. What's happening in Cleveland is bigger than a depth chart decision. It's the beginning of something that this franchise hasn't had in a long time. The only uncomfortable question left is whether the people making the decisions are willing to trust what the tape is already telling them, or whether they'll let the noise drown out the signal one more time. Because in the end, the games don't lie, and neither does the footage, and right now, both of them are pointing at the same name. If you've been watching this situation closely and you're seeing the same things, drop your thoughts in the comments below. Like the video if this breakdown gave you something the highlight reels weren't showing you, and subscribe, because as training camp gets closer, these updates are going to get a lot more interesting.